Hey guys, today I want to talk about flexibility. It's probably one of the best assets that you can have and one of the best traits an expat can have in the Philippines. Flexibility is everything over here. One of the things I notice is that you got to kind of learn to go with the flow. I mean, sometimes I wake up and my girlfriend's asking me, hey, let's go here, let's go there. And sometimes I don't really want to, but sometimes I'll go anyway, just to kind of go with the flow and just have some fun. And one of the other things is, a lot of times you'll find that Filipinos change their mind quite often. They're like, boom, 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 boom. Everything changes constantly. And that's just part of Philippine culture, change. One thing I notice is that a lot of expats don't have that ability to change quickly. They're kind of stuck in their ways and that mode of being, I'm gonna do it this way. That's the way I'm gonna do it. And if you're stuck in that mode, it doesn't work for you over here in the Philippines that well. You got to kind of learn to change because you're in a different culture, number one. And number two, it just makes life easier on you by being more flexible. A lot of expats that come over here, when we're talking about rentals and stuff like that, and I don't want to get too much into rentals, but I'm using this as an example, is that they're stuck on what they want and they don't understand that, if you want to find a place with a hot tub, you're probably not going to find a place with a hot tub over here. It just doesn't work that way. We don't get many people asking for stuff like that, but I'm just saying, like when you want something and you're looking for a furnished apartment, your idea of furnished and a Filipino's idea of a furnished apartment are two different things. A furnished apartment usually has a bed, a sofa, kitchen table. You might get lucky enough to have AC. You're probably not going to have a microwave. And you might have a TV, you might not have a TV. That's furnished, okay? And the price is going to reflect what that apartment has in there. The higher end you go, the more likely you are to get like a microwave, a smart TV, things like that. And usually only the $400 one-bedroom apartments have stuff like that. And a lot of people are thinking that they're going to move into these places for like $120, $140, and they're going to get all that. No, it's probably not going to happen. You're going to get a tiny, small apartment, probably for like $170 to $240, somewhere in that range. If you want all that stuff in there, furnished, you want the AC, you want the microwave, you want a decent sized refrigerator, you want to be able to cook with gas, things like that. If you expect all that stuff, expect to pay for it. You're not going to find somebody that's going to invest all that money and then rent it to you for almost nothing, because most of those things cost money. A refrigerator is a lot of money. They have to overcome that cost. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not, and they also want you to sign a lease because they want to make sure that they can overcome some of those costs. They understand that the next person is going to be using it too, but they're trying to get that cost factor back because they laid out all that money. They want to start getting some of that back. And it's understandable because they want to start making a profit on the place so that they can start living off of some of that money. And you have to understand that. But a lot of expats think, well, I'm not going to give them any profit. I'm not going to do this here. I'd rather be cheap Charlie. You can't be cheap Charlie here because you're burning somebody else on the other end. And that's why a lot of expats come over here. They have a lot of problems finding places. And also a lot of these places are starting to get grabbed up. Okay, they're just disappearing. But you have to be flexible all around. When you're dealing with people, be more flexible, willing to change sometimes, because you might have to change to make something work out, to make it work for you. A lot of people, they're stuck in these Western ways, and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to do it that way. Why do you have to do it that way? You know what? It's the Philippine way sometimes that you have to do. Unfortunately, it might mean running out and getting papers for a bank or something like that. Be ready to change that, because it's if you don't, you're going to have a tough life over here. I'll just put it that way, okay? That's part of the issue of living in the Philippines, is that if you're not flexible and you're not willing to turn things around, and we're stuck in this American way or Western values and value system of, I can get it my way because I'm paying for it, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't work that way over here. The Philippine culture, sometimes it can be difficult on a Westerner. It's very, very difficult sometimes. I have my difficult days here because of the fact that sometimes you go to help somebody try to open an account or something like that, and the bank's giving them a hard time. Each bank is different sometimes. So, and I've talked about this a little bit in the past, is that, you know, they want certain papers, maybe a barangay document stating that you live in this apartment, and then you have to go get a lease for the barangay showing that you're leasing so you can open a bank account over here, things like that. So a lot of people come over here and they don't want to do the lease. They don't want to do the lease for whatever reason, okay? And that's okay, but you're gonna have a hard time finding a place that will do it without the lease. And that's where Airbnb comes into place, and you might want to do it long-term Airbnb. And sometimes the Airbnbs you pay a little bit more for. Sometimes they'll give you like a monthly deal or something, and that's good if you can get a deal like that. But, you know, flexibility gets you a long way in this world. It really, really does. But you know what, like when over here, again, when you're opening a bank account or something over here, they want that barangay residency thing, and you usually need a lease to get that at your barangay. So you're jumping through hoops and hurdles constantly over here, and a lot of the expats hold themselves up by asking the question why. There is no why, we just have to do it. You know, it's just the way it is. And I had one guy, he was like, every question out of his mouth was, why do we have to do that? I don't know. You know, it's just the Philippine laws over here. It's the Philippine rules. And if you can't get accustomed to that, don't come. That's the way, that's all I can say. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit today is this, is that we're getting a lot of low budget expats over here. They're saying that they're living on anywhere from 600 to 1,000. Okay, 1,000 is more feasible. You can eke out a living over here. It's not great. You can probably get some insurance, but it's not a great living. Okay, you're not gonna be able to travel around. And some of these guys have these grandiose dreams when I'm talking to them on the phone. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna start a business, and it's not easy starting a business in the Philippines. It's not. If you think you're gonna come over here and overnight you're gonna start a business from here, probably not gonna happen. I was extremely lucky with the vlog, you know, that I was able to start that up. It's just not gonna happen in most cases. You have to be realistic, okay, that it might not happen. You know, there was a time there where I almost gave up on vlogging because I wasn't sure what was gonna happen. I was vlogging, I was getting a few subscribers here and there, but it wasn't growing quite as fast as I liked. All of a sudden, I vlogged something and it just captured the attention out there, and it got me to where I was making money. And I was making about, I think my first month, and it was really only 2 weeks of that month that I was making money. I made $400 in my first month because it ramped me up really, really quick, just like that. And I was totally shocked because most people grow gradually and slow. And you know, after that, it was fast. You know, I was making good money after that, decent money, to where I had a little bit of extra spending money to spend in the Philippines. But for most people, be realistic. It's not gonna happen probably to you that, you know, you're gonna make money overnight here. A lot of people come here and they fail because they think they can make money here, but the profit margin is so tiny in the Philippines, it's almost non-existent. In some cases, if you have one problem with the business is gonna shut down because it's just not that profitable. You know, like these little sari stores, they're not profitable businesses really. They don't really make a lot. Some do, some don't. Most of them, a lot of the stuff they end up throwing away because it expires or whatever, especially when it's an American running those, because they don't know how to run them. And some of the Filipinos, they're not big on paperwork and keeping papers and documents to see how much of a profit you're making. And you kind of have to keep an eye on that. But anyway, guys, I did want to touch on that about people that are coming over here on the lower budgets. Be really, really careful. Be more realistic in your views over here, because living over here on those budgets, you have to kind of give up some things, and it might mean being in a non-air conditioned place. Because if you're on a budget of $600 or $700 or $800, you know, and you think you're gonna rent a place for like $200, and then you're gonna have your AC running around the clock. There's $90 a month, you know, and a refrigerator or what have you, and a TV and possibly your computer or whatever. You think you're gonna have that running and the electricity bill is going to be $20 or $30. It's not going to happen. It's going to be probably closer to between like 70 to 110 maybe. My electric bill, and all I have is 2 small refrigerators, a TV which never runs, my computer's on quite often. We charge phones. There's 4 of us in the house, and our bill's about $100 a month. So I mean, if your rent's $200, there's $300 right there. So you know, if you're on a lower budget, you're gonna be suffering, because you know what, food's going up around here, and that's the thing over here that isn't going to be lower than the West. I mean, some things will be, like chicken, pork might be a little bit cheaper here than in the U.S. I'm not quite sure of that. I don't eat a lot of pork, but I know chicken over here is cheaper than back home. It's definitely a lot cheaper. Fish, things like that. Some things are cheaper, some things aren't. If you're trying to get Western fish like cod, or you know you're getting frozen tuna steaks or something like that from Landers or S&R, you're going to pay more for that, and it's going to be expensive. It's not going to be cheap. So just be aware that, you know, these cheap Charlie budgets, sometimes they're not going to work for you. I mean, I know a lot of people that are on these budgets, and they know that they're not going to be eating really decent food. You can eat chicken, pork, or whatever. I got these nuts falling up from the sky. I don't know if they hit you on the head, you're probably a dead man. But anyway, just be aware of that. You know, you don't want to get stuck in one of these budgets over here and not be able to get back home or something like that. And I worry about a lot of these guys that are on these budgets, because of the fact that they're very unrealistic in their views. They think that because they're being told by some vloggers out there that, hey, yeah, you can live on 500, you can live on 600, and you can live like a king down here in Dumaguete. Dumaguete is expensive. You know, from what I hear from some of my friends down here, it's not cheap. And no, you're not going to live on a $500 US budget down there, or a 600 or 700 probably. You're just not going to be able to do it, and then be able to go out for coffee with your friends or have a beer once in a while. It's not going to happen. You have to have different views and be more realistic in your views. But anyway, guys, I just want to talk about that a little bit. It's been on my chest because this week here I've been dealing with expats a lot on the phone, and a lot of these guys are dreamers. They really are. They're dreamers. And one guy, I told him, I says, I wouldn't come over here on that budget. He says he's coming over here on 600, like it or leave it. And there's another guy who's on a low budget, not that low, but he says he's coming no matter what, and he's gonna learn to live off that budget, and this is what he can afford and stuff. I'm like thinking, scratching my head. I'm like, well, that's a hard thing to try to find what he's asking for, because he wants so much in the place, and you're not gonna find a packed apartment for that much money. I mean, you can look around, you might get lucky to find everything you want in there. Most apartments here are not going to have all the Western needs that people want, like having AC, microwave, and things like that. And for you guys that are coming over here on these lower budgets, I always tell people to have a startup fund. Get a small apartment for like 80 or $100, right? And put all the stuff in yourself, and you'll save yourself, $100 a month once that stuff is all paid off. You know, like when you get all that money back, because you're only paying $80 or $100, and that's what I do. I've lived there for 4 years, okay? I've made my money back like 5 times over on my AC, because a lot of guys, they go into these apartments, they want the AC installed. So instead of paying $100 a month, they're paying $200 a month, because they want it furnished, they want a nice bed, they want certain types of furniture. So the people go out there, they do it like a 6-month lease or something like that, and then they're stuck in that lease for that amount of money, whatever it may be. That's great for people that don't want to be locked down, or they want to move around a lot, what have you. That's great for people like that. But if you're settled, if you're going to settle here and you're going to stay here, do the $80 or $100 a month apartments if you're on a lower budget. And if you have the money, obviously go for the bigger ones, okay? That's okay. But a lot of the people that I'm seeing coming in on the lower budgets, go for the $80 apartment, go for the $100 apartment or the $60 apartment. They're out there. They're small. Some of them are small, some of them are decent size. That one that I showed the other day for $120, bargain for what you're getting there. Yes, it's not fancy, but for somebody that's on a lower budget, it's perfect if you have a couple of ACs in there and you furnished it yourself. Maybe even put the AC in yourself. If you were living there long term and signed a long term lease and fixed up some of the things that were wrong in there, you'd be all set. Like I said, you have to have an eye when you go into these apartments and say, okay, what can I do to fix this up and how much it's going to cost? And if I do a long-term lease and fix it up to the way I want, will I be happy there? And in most cases, you'll say, oh, yeah, if I can fix this, this, and this, I'm okay in this apartment. If I paint this and this, I'll be okay. And just ask the landlord and say, hey, listen, can I do that? Is that okay with you? I'll pay for it to get done, or I'll do it myself. That's the way to work. Remember, you have to be kind of realistic, and you have to be flexible here, and you have to kind of look at things differently here. Everybody wants to come in here and they want things done their way. They tell the landlord, and the landlord just kind of raise their eyebrows and say, I'm going to rent to somebody else because I can rent it to somebody else. I don't have to go through all that. And that's what you have to have in your head, that, you know, they don't care if you're an expat. Some people think, well, I'm an expat, they know I got money. They don't care. That's the thing. A lot of people think that they care, but they really don't care. Some of them might, but the majority of them really don't care that you're an expat. They know that you got money, but they can get a nurse or something like that in some of these small apartments, and they're going to pay just as good as the expat, and they'll pay monthly. And some people say, well, if I rent for the furnished and I pay the $200 or $240 or $250 or $300 or whatever it is, or $150 or $170, whatever the price may be, oh, they're making extra money. No, they're not. They're putting in all kinds of furniture. They're putting in AC. They're not making any extra money off you, you know. So they're better off renting it unfurnished and just collect the money, because then it's all pure profit, you know. But is it worth it to rent it out furnished? Yeah, in the long term it is for them. But, you know, when you furnish it yourself, if you're going to stay there long term, that's when you start saving the money, okay? You throw in your AC, you furnish the place. It's not going to cost that much money. Most of these small apartments you can do fairly cheap. And the good thing about most of these small apartments, you can have a girlfriend living there, or a girlfriend with a kid, or maybe even 2 kids in some of the small apartments. Not the super small apartments, but there are apartments out there like my size that you could have a girlfriend living there, no issues. Anyway, guys, remember what I said. Be realistic, be flexible, and you'll be all set in the Philippines. God bless, guys. Take care.